Morning intuitives. Once again, it's your favorite male INFJ demisexual witch. And if I'm not your favorite of all those things together, introduce me to the other one because I'd like to know I'm not the only one. So, topic of this video, why INFJs and ENFJs hate double standards, because we do. I've hated double standards about as long as I can remember, even before I fully understood what they were back in elementary school. But before I get into that topic, I want to remind everybody again, in the comments, I'm going to pin it, link below, my link to my fundraising page for SameU, where I'm trying to raise money for brain injury recovery by doing 33 YouTube videos by the end of July, which is like 3 times what I normally do. So, if you like these videos, please throw 5 or 10 of whatever your currency is towards that cause. Understand it's going to help people. I don't see a dime of it. You're helping me by helping me feel like I'm helping people because, one of my greatest purposes in life to myself is to be able to help people for a good cause. And as you know, I was wrongfully dismissed from the Arlington County Fire Department, and I now lost the means to help people. And probably the biggest part of my identity, too. So, please, by the end of the month, I know INFJs like to procrastinate, but, time's running short. Please throw 5 or 10 if you haven't. So, topic of this video, why INFJs and ENFJs hate double standards. Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. For one, we like to see people as individuals for their individual merit and for who they are and what they've done as a person, as opposed to, oh, this is, so-and-so's nephew or so-and-so's son. It's like, well, just because somebody's grandfather, for example, may have been a great man who did great things, doesn't automatically mean his grandson's the same way, just because they share the same last name. That's, especially here in America, I thought this country kind of didn't want that whole aristocracy thing and birthrights and titles being passed down because of who your father was. And, that was the theory anyway back in the day. It kind of hasn't gone that way. We have political dynasties, and we certainly function as an oligarchy. But that's a topic for another day. So, double standards. And in a lot of times, double standards includes my number one and oldest nemesis, the Old Boys Club, or also known as the Good Old Boys Club, where people seem to have certain rights, privileges, opportunity, are immune to punishment, immune to being reprimanded for their deeds solely based of being part of this group that is well established, a lot of times riddled with legacy and nepotism. And they seem to coalesce together and are able to have special rules for that group and basically control the culture of an organization and who, act as gatekeepers as to who they allow into what they view as their club. Not meaning like the Old Boys Club, meaning like the organization to which that Old Boys Club is a part of. So along with hating double standards comes supporting equal rights, like equal rights for marriage, for the gay community. I mean, as an INFJ, that's a duh moment for me. It's like, well, if the Constitution says equal rights for all, then how can they change those rules based on a religion when we're a secular nation and we don't have an official religion? It shouldn't matter what a book from the Bronze Age says, because there's a lot of books from the Bronze Age and a lot of them, a lot of good information. But the one that I'm referring to, that I'm not trying to be disrespectful, has no bearing on the Constitution nor the law of the United States. Whether you like it or not, we're not a theocracy. That wasn't our founders' intention. Most of them were deists anyway. Read your history books. And that also goes into the topic of women's rights. I mean, to me, this gets a little muddy for me because I don't know if this is an INFJ thing for me or if it's a male witch thing, because I can't separate the two very well. So for me, that's always been a dumb moment. It's like, well, why can't women do these certain jobs or even apply to these certain jobs or compete for these certain jobs. Like, I'll use my example with the fire department. I have no problem. I don't understand why some firefighters like we don't want women in the department. Everybody takes the same tests and gets the same training. I mean, they talk about like the physical aspects. Well, not all women are like 90 pounds and 5 foot nothing, and some of them can even make it through if they work hard enough. But the point I'm getting to is that the physical ability test to get hired to get into a fire academy is exactly the same whether you're a 6'5", 220-pound man, whether you're my size, 6 foot, 170 pounds, or if you're 5 foot, a 5 foot, 210-pound female. It's the same. You got to carry the same amount of weights. You got the same time limit. I've done that and done and passed that test multiple times. I know that for a fact to be true. And the same goes with the training in the fire academy. There's not, this is the standard for males, this is the standard for females. This is the standard, either you pass it or you don't, regardless of who you are or how big you are. So I don't see the problem with that. Why shouldn't everybody in any organization get an equal chance to get the job they want if they're willing to put in the work and they can pass the established standards that exist for everybody? And the same goes again in punishment. Why should somebody else get special treatment when they commit a wrongdoing just potentially because of who they're related to or how many years they served in an organization? An example from my life, like, why should, my abuser from the fire department be granted a fully unredacted report complete with the witnesses' names of, the investigation report into the bullying and hazing incident, and I can't have that. All I can have is a heavily redacted report. That's a double standard. That's wrong. Why shouldn't we be on equal footing? Why does he have extra rights and I don't? And I never understood. I mean, it's always enraged me as to why it seems like certain people get extra rights, and in a lot of these cases, these extra rights aren't even granted to them based on their own merit. It's sort of, something they're born with, like a kind of silver spoon. And you see it with more famous people. Well, we'll take like the Bushes, for example. Bush Sr. was a legit war hero and all that, but like his son, a lot of people are saying, well, he can be president as dad was. Well, just because your father did a job doesn't mean you can do a job. I mean, by that standard, where's my shot at being a nuclear reactor operator? My dad was a nuclear reactor operator. By their standards, I should have a shot at that. See how it goes. I'd be about as good at it as Homer Simpson, but, if that's the standard, where's my shot? And, where I grew up, people still defend that double standard. Like, I'll give you an instance where a neighbor of mine wanted to be a cop like his father, and the state police, at the time, this was like 15 years ago, had a passing grade of a 70. You had to pass the written exam by 70% in order to advance to the physical ability test. He didn't pass. A few weeks later, he took the test for his father's small little township department, and you know how I feel about township departments instead of county departments. And this test was internal, and there were no checks and balances. Somehow, magically, he gets the highest grade. And this also, I should mention, was right at the time where his father retired. I find that interesting. I mean, there were 3 separate times in my life where I took multiple firefighter exams, and the tests are very similar. All my grades were within a few points of each other. So this instance I'm talking about with police seems a little shady to me. And then people like myself and other people my age called it out, and the baby boomers like, well, his father was a cop, so he deserves automatic entry. That's the way it's supposed to be. This like notion that double standards are good. I don't know where that came from. To me, it seems to be a majority baby boomer thing. I don't know what their thinking is behind it, but I absolutely, utterly reject it. And that gets me a lot of flack because, as I've said before, at least where I grew up, the baby boomers don't like any of us second-class citizens, those born after 1964, questioning their status quo, which they view as perfect, infallible, and unquestionable. So as INFJs and ENFJs, we need to continue to call out and draw attention to various double standards as well as old boys clubs and expose them for what they are. Expose them as illegitimate, expose them as wrong, expose them as outdated, and destroy them. So, no matter what the organization or the profession, everybody who applies has an equal chance of getting hired. You know, I suppose like the one exception would be, and I'm talking in emergency services, line of duty deaths. Yeah, if like a sibling or a parent died in the line of duty, yes, you deserve, special consideration. But I'm not talking about those instances. I'm talking merely about a parent who worked in that profession, who wasn't injured or anything, just worked there. If anything, the children of those said people should, be treated a little tougher, because unlike the average candidate, they know exactly what's expected of them. Like the average person who applies to be a police officer doesn't truly understand what it means to get hired as a police officer. The son of a police officer should know what exactly is expected of him in order to get that badge, if that makes that a little more clear. So we need to continue to calling out double standards wherever we see them, whether they be with gay rights, with employment, with nepotism and good old boys clubs, and especially with equal rights and equal pay for women, where I think some men are against that because deep down they know if they had to compete on an equal playing field with female candidates, that they wouldn't make it, that they're relying on that old boys club notion to get them in, and they feel for some reason that is their right, to have special consideration, to not have to compete equally with everybody else just because of whose cousin, uncle, nephew, brother, son they are. And that's not right. You know, this that's so far outdated. Compete on your own merit. If you want something, you should have to get it on your own merit, not through who you know. It should be through what you know and what you're capable, in some cases, what you're capable of physically, too. That's just my thoughts. So, and I'll end it as always as, never sell out your integrity, always trust your intuition. Please donate to Same You, and keep calling out double standards.